The evolution of animation is a fascinating journey that spans over a century, marked by technological advancements, artistic innovations, and shifts in cultural preferences. From the rudimentary experiments of the late 19th century to the sophisticated CGI marvels of today, animation has evolved in several key stages. The earliest forms of animation, such as flipbooks and zoetropes, dated back to the late 1800s. French artist Émile Cohl created one of the first animated films, Phantasmagorie, in 1908, using simple hand-drawn animation techniques. Following this was what was known as the Golden Age of animation, which spanned from the 1920s to the 1960s. This era saw the rise of animation studios such as Walt Disney Studios, Warner Bros. Animation, and Fleischer Studios. In 1928, Walt Disney's Steamboat Willie introduced synchronized sound animation and introduced the world to Mickey Mouse. In 1937, Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was the first full-length animated feature film, marking a significant milestone in animation history. Meanwhile, Warner Bros. Created iconic characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and Porky Pig during this period, known for their witty humor and slapstick comedy. This led into the 1950s and onwards, where television animation began to flourish. The advent of television brought animation into people's homes on a regular basis. Hanna-Barbera Productions pioneered the use of limited animation techniques for TV cartoons, with shows like The Flintstones in 1960 and Scooby-Doo, Where Are You in 1969. Japanese anime also began gaining international recognition during this period, with series like the 1963 hit Astro Boy and the 1967 show Speed Racer becoming popular worldwide. This era was then followed up by what was known as the Disney Renaissance, which occurred in the late 1980s through the 1990s. After a period of relative stagnation, Disney experienced a creative resurgence, with films like The Little Mermaid in 1989, Beauty and the Beast in 1991, and The Lion King in 1994. These films combined traditional hand-drawn animation with Broadway-style musical numbers and compelling storytelling, captivating audiences globally. Next came the CGI revolution, which occurred in the late 20th century until the present. The introduction of computer-generated imagery, or CGI, revolutionized animation, offering filmmakers new tools and techniques. Pixar Animation Studios pioneered CGI feature films with Toy Story in 1995, the first entirely computer-animated feature film. DreamWorks Animation, Blue Sky Studios, and Illumination Entertainment also emerged as major players in the CGI animation industry, producing hits like Shrek in 2001, Ice Age in 2002, and Despicable Me in 2010. CGI allowed for greater realism, intricate character animation, and fantastical worlds previously impossible to create with traditional animation methods. The styles of 2D drawn animations as well as CGI animation became commonplace and only advanced in quality from their conception. However, the artistic styles of animation often stayed the same, making some animations hard to place in a certain time period, as the artistic expression within animation began to plateau. This was before a new era of animation took the world by storm with its incredibly unique style. The style I'm referring to, of course, is that of the 2018 film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This film was visually stunning and brought a resurgence into the interest in animation, especially animated movies. As well as this, it was a breath of fresh air for the arguably fatigued Marvel Universe. The animation technique used in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a unique blend of computer-generated imagery and traditional hand-drawn animation techniques. The filmmakers aimed to replicate the look and feel of a comic book, so they developed a groundbreaking animation style called comic book animation, or comic book come to life. This intriguing comic book animation utilizes several combined techniques to achieve its signature style. Firstly, they use half-tone dots. If anyone watching is a graphic designer, they are very familiar with half-tone dots. However, for those who don't know, half-tone dots are those little dots that make up the coloring in comic books, which mimics the traditional printing style that comic books were created with. This gives the animation a distinct texture that brings on the nostalgic feeling of comic books. Along with the usage of halftone dots, the animators use distinct line work. Characters and objects in the film feature exaggerated and bold lines, again reminiscent of comic book art. Other examples of this can be seen within things such as the Borderlands game series, which is personally one of my favorite game franchises. Within this, the lines on characters, weapons, and all other texture outlines are dark and exaggerated to give a distinct comic-like style. One of the most interesting aspects of this new animation style is the coloring choices, both used for the characters as well as background scenes and objects. The overall colors of a lot of these scenes almost seemed like a handmade oil painting, that when coupled with the exaggerated outlines gives it a beautiful effect that is incredibly unique. However, since a lot of this work is CGI, these scenes aren't actually individually painted, but rather utilize an interesting technique for image processing known as the Kuwahara filter. The Kuwahara filter is a non-linear smoothing filter used in image processing for adaptive noise reduction. Most filters that are used for image soothing are linear, low-pass filters that effectively reduce noise, but also blur out the edges. However, the Kuwahara filter is able to apply smoothing on the image while preserving the edges. The Kuwahara filter is named after Michiyoshi Kuwahara, who worked at Kyoto and Osaka Sangyo Universities in Japan, developing early medical imaging of dynamic heart muscle in the 1970s and 80s. More than 30 years ago, Kuwahara attempted to denoise medical imagery, and unknowingly set off a chain reaction of research developments leading to a modern-day post-processing effect that virtually transforms images into beautiful paintings. We can see some examples of this here. The actual process and discovery of the Kuwahara effect involves a lot of math and complicated subjects that I'd rather not get into, as I know I'd explain them poorly. However, the Wikipedia explains it pretty well, as well as there are some other great videos on YouTube if you want to learn more. To continue, however, the combination of these effects have become incredibly popular, and has become a commonplace in successful animations and reboots. For example, the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles employs these exact same techniques. As well as this, the newest Puss in Boots movie utilizes the same animation techniques to give a new visual twist on the rebooted classic. This style is reminiscent and very close to that of one of my favorite short films known as The Witness, which was a feature episode on the show Love, Death, and Robots. The animation style, especially in this short film, is incredibly gripping and beautiful, seamlessly mixing the 3D CGI with these 2D lines and painting-like textures to create such a visually stunning story, along with its intriguing narrative, of course.
Make some room, bitches! May I have your attention, please, bitches?
Something that these have in common as well is the manipulation of frame rate to give it more of a comic book feel, like it's a story jumping off a page. In the majority of these new films, in order to give the animation a more dynamic and hand-drawn feel, different scenes and characters have varying frame rates. This is an interesting detail that was geniusly employed to further that comic book style. One aspect that the Spider-Verse movies do employ that others do not is the different versions of Spider-Man from various dimensions, having slightly different animation styles, reflecting their origins and characteristics. This was something unique to this film and works perfectly with the story. Overall, this combination of techniques resulted in a visually stunning and innovative animation style that won critical acclaim and numerous awards, including the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature in 2019. This new style seems to mark a new era of animation, as more and more films are adopting these visually stunning methods. I personally love this style and find it very refreshing for the animation industry. It is clear it is here to stay as we see more and more films being pitched and created with this style. For example, the concept for a Batman Beyond film, which clearly is emulating this comic book style. Honestly, I do hope that this gets picked up and made, as I was a huge fan of Batman Beyond as a kid, and would love to get a resurgence of that era of Batman. With this, however, I'm still wary of the longevity of this animation style. While this style is something that I thoroughly enjoy and find very stunning and refreshing, I can understand how it could quickly become an oversaturated market and become too commonplace and therefore boring to fans of animation. While it is currently a revolutionary stylistic change in animation that marks a new age of creativity and exploration within animation styles, I think it is important to note that the success of this style doesn't mean it is the new meta that will continue to be accepted, but rather it should be looked at as an acceptance by audiences for animators to experiment with their work and to look for new and creative ways to tell stories, even if they are reboots or spin-offs. If you guys enjoyed this video, I encourage you to leave a like and comment and subscribe to the channel. Any support is appreciated and helps me to be able to keep making videos like this in the future. I also may make a Patreon if this video does well, but at the moment, just interaction with this video is all the support I need. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram at ConsFilmStuff, where I post film pictures I've taken, music and movies I've enjoyed recently, and yeah, have a good one.